Hi there and welcome. I'm Manoj Menon, MD and founder of Twimbit. And today's conversation, we are going to focus on customer experience in neobanking. Clearly, neobanking is one of the biggest trends in the financial services industry across Asia Pacific. And neobanks thrive on providing great customer experience. And I'm thrilled to have my colleague Varnika Goel, who led a major research effort to study the customer experience in India's top neobanks. And Varnika, great to have you. So, what is this study, Varnika? How did we go about doing this study? In terms of doing customer experience benchmarks for neobanks in India.
Thank you, Manoj. Great to be here. Um, so what I did was basically we're studying the neobanking environment and we're studying the entire landscape in APAC. And now we've culled it down to India. And in India, we understood that there are about 25 plus neobanks catering to both retail, business, SME sector, out of which we identified that a few of them are still in their beta testing phase and a few of them have come out with their propositions are doing very well in the market. So we actually went about and opened real bank accounts with each one of them. And based on that, we shortlisted our top 13, through which we could actually test out our entire end to end customer journey and comment on their customer experience.
Oh, fantastic. So, like now, so you looked at all the neobanks, 25 plus, you narrowed it down, brought it down to about 13 of them. How did you come up with the 13? You must have used a framework.
Definitely. So we had like a 7 parameter framework. We categorized the entire customer experience in these 7 parameters. We started from the very basic of whether we are getting the mobile app and how the app storage is for that app and how easy it is to download and get started with the app, whether it's available in both operating systems of Android and iOS. Then we moved on to the ease of account opening. So we were talking about how many steps does it take to actually open an account, what all inflection points are there, and what are questions that the customer needs to answer to finally complete its account opening process. Then the third was about KYC authentication, which becomes the primary aspect of opening an account where you have to do your identity verification. What was the process involved? And does it involve multiple interflections? Did it involve like an in-person intervention or was it completely virtual? And then we've talked about identity documents. Does the customer have to upload their identity documents, physically verify its identity documents? And then we finally went about how much time does it take to activate an account? Is it a completely digital process and gets activated within the app? Or do we have to go to a branch, complete our identification, and then finally our account activation happens? And then once all of that is over, when the customer is all in, what kind of innovative features do you provide? Is your debit card cool enough to flaunt? Does your debit card provide you enough features that you can do a facial payment or a biometric payment? Your virtual card is right away in your hands at the time of activation. And then finally, what innovation are you doing in services? Are you providing some analytical dashboards? Are you doing some gaming theories? Do you have some kind of emoticon-led intuitive interface? And what all services that you're providing just beyond the basic bank account? So this was the overall framework that we went about.
Wow, that's pretty cool. So, such a complicated exercise across all the 25 plus, and from there you narrowed it down to 13 and did a deep dive on the 13. So, out of curiosity, the fastest to open a bank account. Can I open a bank account like in less than 5, 10, 15 minutes and without even going to the bank? Is that possible today? And how many such banks do that?
So I would say 5-10 minutes. That's a near-term dream. I do believe that account opening will become as frictionless as happening in 10 minutes. But definitely, the fastest that we could achieve was between 18 to 20 minutes, which was a completely digital exercise with no human intervention, end to end. And the activation ways would allow you to start making payments, doing UPI, scan and pay, and you would have your virtual debit card. So that was the fastest that we had seen so far, and I think in that respect, it was one of the most frictionless experience. So what we found that was it was available to us in Walrus, it was available to us in Slice, it was available to us in FamPay, and it was also available to us in Fill-In.
Excellent. So, what are some of the other key findings? You would like to walk us through?
Yes, definitely. So, what we saw was that in ease of account opening, irrespective of the number of steps, right? We do feel that an ideal should be about 8 to 12 steps that a customer needs to go through to stay engaged and at the same time complete that entire process. But however, the steps do not define that it is a completely digital experience and also it is a completely efficient process. There were some certain banks that we found out that were having a less number of steps, like you see, Paytm was just 4 steps, Neo was just 4 steps. However, there were multiple human interventions with respect to their KYC, which actually led to disrupting the customer journey, and it was not completely digital. At the same time, Finnan and Slice had about 14 steps, but we could complete the end to end process digitally without any human intervention. And this was also subject to the kind of KYC process that they were giving out to the customers. If they were giving out a limited KYC process, then they were more they paid more emphasis on the fact that they engage the customer, get them on board, and start transacting with them. And later on, when the customer wants to go ahead with the full KYC, they can facilitate that digitally. However, there were certain banks which preferred that a full KYC is done before they start accessing the service and start transacting with the bank. So it's also a business model approach that that we understood through our process. And it differed that the partner banks that these neobanks were operating with actually defined that what kind of customer remediation or kind of customer onboarding process they want to get engaged with. So that was one of the interesting insights that
Excellent. So what
yeah.
you're saying is that more number of steps, but 100% digital, fewer steps, but it needs a physical intervention through a video or something. And it's really dependent on what the bank decides as its approach. And increasingly, Finnin, Slice, InstaPay, and Walrus are really pushing for complete end-to-end digital, onboarding.
Yes, that's true. So that's the reason what we felt was that ideally a bank should have 8 to 12 steps that keeps the customer engaged and at the same time ensures that there's a digital onboarding process that's completely frictionless. So that's what we've set as a benchmark for these banks. Another thing that we found out was the KYC authentication. This is one of the biggest disruption in the customer journey. So a lot of times what happens is that either you have to update your KYC multiple times, you have to go through a physical KYC to complete, and that increases your average time taken to open the bank account. Then what kind of methods are provided? Even if it's a digital process and you're able to do an in-app video KYC and you want a full account, that also increases the time taken because all dependent on the bank and when the customer executive is available to complete your process. So here we also felt that the banks who had a complete limited KYC process were able to engage the customer and onboard them much faster as compared to the other banks who were going for a full KYC update. Um, However, from a process standpoint, we still felt that Paytm and Airtel are having a robust KYC process, which they ensure that the customer has multiple choices and ensures that a video KYC, an at-home KYC from a physical agent, or going to the one of their authorized centers, all options are available for the customer, so that the customer feels that at any point they are not stuck and they still have an option to open the bank account.
Excellent. Okay, from KYC, uploading the documents is, I think this is the most painful part for most people.
Yes, we actually feel that when Aadhaar system was instituted, it was a centralized system, and all banks should ensure that once the Aadhaar is a number is updated on the app, it auto fetches the details for the customer, and the customer does not have to physically upload their Aadhaar again to verify it. This actually increases the number of steps as well for your authentication, and also involves a two-factor authentication. So once you put in your Aadhaar number, the Aadhaar number is verified, then you upload your Aadhaar card, then you get an OTP from the Aadhaar system. You have to update the OTP. And then finally, the bank also sends from their side to secure it, and then you have to fill in that OTP as well. So ideally, I feel that this is something that can be centralized, and the details should be auto fetched. In most cases, we didn't feel that the banks are doing this, so that's a recommendation from our side that the banks should start integrating the centralized database with their KYC authentication, and do it just through a selfie picture which verifies the identity of the customer. Uh, in most of the cases, we feel that PAN card is important for disclosing your eligibility for taxes. So that is definitely something again can be integrated with the centralized database, because this information is available. So we don't feel that the customer needs to upload this document onto the platform. Can be verified through an OTP. Uh, so these were some of the things. However, the what we found that few of the banks came out to be winners because they were using only these two identity verifications, where others were also asking for a driver's license or a voter's ID, a passport, or or even your bank account, previous bank account statements, just to ensure the credibility of the customer.
Mhm. And how easy is it for, let's say, people in rural India to open a bank account? It's still 20 minutes, 18 to 20 minutes is on a mobile device. If they are predominantly doing it on mobile devices, it's still not that easy enough. Imagine concentrating on your mobile for 18, 20 minutes. I can do it on Instagram, but maybe not for anything else.
Right. Yes, definitely. So one of the things, both Airtel and Fino are rural-focused banks. So what they did was to ensure that they get mass liking in the rural market. They use their branch correspondent network, and with that branch correspondent network, they try to educate the customers on how to open an account completely digital. And they have these network effects that each person who opens an account becomes a network agent and starts spreading that word and educating others to open the account, which is why they have a very huge penetration in the rural market, as compared to being famous with the millennials or the urban customers. So,
Excellent.
and this is something similar that SBI UNO has also done. They've used their branch correspondent network. However, SBI UNO is now a part of SBI, and it doesn't operate as a separate entity. So we haven't evaluated them as one of the neobanks. But that has actually led to capitalizing a mass youth population in the rural markets.
Fantastic. Okay, so shall we look at the benchmarks? The overall summary benchmarks of all the banks, and how you said there is also some innovative features, but yeah, we could look at the benchmarks.
Definitely. So, what we've done is we've used an Harvey Wall analysis to benchmark them in all the seven parameters. What we found most interesting was that the ease of account opening and KYC uploading identity documents, while they're the most crucial steps, What the banks really need to work upon is beyond that when it comes to their debit card features and at the same time innovation in services. We did not find a lot of customizations or innovation happening in these two areas. So debit cards were pretty standard for most of them, which were, although they were different, they were more from a portrait than a landscape. It had the debit card numbers are now not displayed on the top, but it is displayed behind. They have a plain quirky feature, and they are tap and pay ones. You can do a biometric, a fingerprint payments as well. So all of that features are there. In some of the cases, for example, Walrus, gives you a black card and also lets you customize your signature. So that's why we gave them full points on that. However, we didn't see things like customization based on sustainability, environment friendly, being biodegradable, which is actually something which is being promoted outside of India by other neobanks. We also didn't see the options of metal cards versus plastic cards. In some of the cases who want to be completely virtual, for example, Airtel Payments Bank have only a virtual debit card. And we also saw that some of the banks are actually charging for their debit card if you need a physical card. So you can look at it two ways. One is that they want to promote it completely virtual, but at the same time, because they have a design which is different than a traditional design, they want to make it a premium product and actually charge for their debit card. And
Mm-hmm.
finally, yes.
No, I think also the next slide. I think you have some of the other banks in the next slide, which we didn't get a chance. So maybe it would be great to talk briefly about a couple of them, each of them, and what really stood out for each of them.
No, definitely. For like I said, for FamPay, since it is a teenage-based a product proposition, what's interesting for them is that they're providing a prepaid card, but with the prepaid card, they're customizing the rewards and discounts, which are more centered towards the teenage group and how they can use it. And they also have like a game called Streak, which these kids can play amongst themselves, set their spending and savings goals, and actually have their own environment within the app itself to manage their expenses. And this can again be integrated with the parents, because the parents are the ones who are doing the top ups to their cards, so they can actually see how their children are doing their spending and saving activity. What we liked about Finnin was that they have an analytical dashboard called FIBO, which does a category wise split of how you're spending and which category you're spending and how it is different from your previous month. So they do a delta analysis for that. For in Fino, what it stood out was, like I said, they had a very frictionless experience for the rural population. They're actually very focused for the unbanked. So they're trying to make sure that as much unbanked population and youth can come and access even the government-based propositions have been integrated in their app and are being sold through their app. Uh, then that's similar for the India Post Payments Bank. They're using the same branch network effect to reach out to the rural and the masses. For Instant Pay, we felt that they have different propositions for different customer segments, which actually stood out for us. And the account opening process were extremely easy and frictionless. So that was something interesting. For Kotak 811, the feature that completely stood out for me, and there was nothing else that I would say was extraordinary, was the customized debit card. You can customize the debit card as per your liking. It is the same landscape card, but you can add a picture. You can use uh, your own poster, your own graphical image, even your own image on your card. So that something stood out for us. For Neo, again, it was the debit card features. Their debit card is quite cool and quirky, and it comes up with all tap and go features. They also provide the virtual card in the app itself. For NSDL Jiffy, we felt that they have an XML based uploading documents, which actually is linked to the central database of the government. So, which is where they are accessing the data, and you only have to update your Aadhaar and PAN card once for them. Then with Paytm, like I said before, the KYC authentication process is actually, they've covered all the spheres of KYC authentication with no stone unturned. So in this case, they're actually making sure that the customer has all the possible choices to make sure they want to go for a limited KYC account or they want to go for a full KYC account. For Slice, we felt the design is super cool, quirky, aesthetically beautiful once you go on the app. And you can, the time taken to activate the bank account is just between 18 to 20 minutes. So it's pretty simple and easy. And for Walrus, we felt that their draconian attack game theory based game was actually very interesting, where they've actually tried to make a virtual environment for their customers to attack banking activities like a game. So that makes it super interesting. And also, they have a very limited number of steps. Like I said, it comes between 8 to 12, and you can have a limited KYC account in just between 8 to 10, 12 steps. So that's very easy and frictionless. And they have a customized black card. You can customize your signature.
Mm-hmm. So, if you go to the previous slide, you rated some of the established banks like Kotak, Digibank, and Neo, NSDL. You have rated them very poorly. So, is it because they are not as looking for growth with these new segment of customers as compared to these neobanks?
See, there are two things with them. One, they're still operating under their traditional mindset that they want to skim through their customers before going full out. So they don't they don't give out they do not acquire the customers in the first attempt. They first try to evaluate the customer, conduct their KYC on a physical level, and then onboard the customer. At a lot of times, we felt that with Digibank and Kotak per se, that while we were trying to open an account, it was the average time taken for us to go through that entire process took more than 10 days, which was actually a journey disruption for us, because there were banks like Walrus Lies where we were able to have our accounts in 20 minutes. So the comparison was huge. It is also dependent upon the partner banks. Some of the banks come from PSUs like NSDL and India Post Payments Bank. So where we felt that the intervention was slow as compared to other banks, they were still not providing that level of frictionless which we were expecting from the other banks itself.
Excellent. Varnika, what are your top recommendations to some of these banks?
So as my top recommendations, I would say number one, what we felt most of these banks were lacking was a virtual assistant who can help the customer to navigate through the app once they're in it, and also address queries, and which is not pre-mediated, but it's actually a virtual conversation happening. Then we felt that there needs to be more contextualized recommendations. Right now, the recommendations are based on only their analytical dashboards. So this can actually get better as and when the customer interacts with increases his interaction with the bank. Then what we said that third party products, while Paytm and Airtel have a great way of integrating third party products, but not others are doing. And this is one of the biggest area of revenue for other banks beyond going from earning from deposits or debit transactions and other payment transactions. And then we thought that targeted based incentives, rewards, making it more personalized, making sure it's more customer journey centric than like product centric. So have those, because that will keep the customer engaged, and it also gets integrated with the other lifestyle services that the customer. So strive towards creating a one-stop shop than making the customer jump between different apps. to fulfill its transactions.
Thanks very much, Varnika. That was an incredible walkthrough of this report, and I'm sure we can go into more detail and appreciate you taking the time. Maybe for the next session, look out for our detailed conversation on what are the top 5 innovative features or applications from these neobanks, and we'll delve into it a little bit more detail so that we can understand how these banks are transforming customer experience and in that process embedding financial services more seamlessly into our lifestyle. So thanks, and do look up our report on our website, twimbit.com.
Thank you, Manoj. It was great. Thank you. Bye.